I found my wife's family text thread called Project Escape, Breaking Her Free. I said nothing. Instead, I silently relocated our funds, updated security details. When she attempted to launch step 1 of their scheme, she realized I'd already finished mine. The discovery happened on an ordinary Thursday evening in our Phoenix suburban home while I was reviewing commercial solar installation proposals at my desk. I'm a renewable energy systems analyst, 37 years old, earning $135,000 annually helping businesses transition to sustainable power solutions. My wife Penelope had just started her bath when her phone buzzed repeatedly on our kitchen counter. Thinking it might be work-related since she coordinates renewable energy projects for a consulting firm, I glanced at the screen to see if I should let her know about any urgent messages. That's when I saw the group chat title that changed everything: Project Escape, Breaking Her Free. The participants included Penelope's mother, her twin sister Francine, cousin Ophelia, and college roommate Maxine. I felt my stomach drop as I opened the thread and found weeks of meticulously planned messages detailing a sophisticated divorce strategy specifically targeting my solar panel installation business assets. Their 3-phase plan was methodical and calculated with military precision. First, secretly photograph all business contracts, equipment inventory, and financial documents from my home office during my installation trips. Second, consult with a specialist attorney who handles high-asset divorces involving technical businesses like renewable energy companies. Third, have Penelope file restraining orders claiming workplace harassment and emotional manipulation to gain immediate legal advantages. In asset division, I read message after message describing how they intended to claim I'd been sabotaging her career advancement opportunities and systematically isolating her from family support systems. They discussed optimal timing for maximum financial impact, specifically planning to strike when my business contracts would be most valuable during peak solar installation season in late spring. The most disturbing part was seeing how they'd analyzed every aspect of our marriage looking for psychological and financial weaknesses to exploit in court proceedings. They'd researched my business income patterns for months, identified which commercial clients generated the most revenue, and even planned how to claim partial ownership of expensive installation equipment I'd purchased entirely with my own funds before our marriage. The level of family coordination was staggering, with each member assigned specific roles in gathering intelligence and supporting Penelope through what they repeatedly called her liberation process from financial manipulation. I screenshot every single message, my hands surprisingly steady despite the profound betrayal I was processing in real time, while Penelope continued her relaxing bath just 20 feet away, completely unaware that her entire family conspiracy had just been exposed to its primary target. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was discovering their plan to destroy my renewable energy business while surrounded by the very solar installation contracts they intended to steal and weaponize against me in court. As I scrolled deeper into their messages, I found detailed discussions about claiming I'd been emotionally abusive by working long hours during installation seasons, characterizing my dedication to building a sustainable business as neglect and control. They'd even crafted a narrative about how my success in renewable energy was actually sabotaging Penelope's career in the same field, claiming I deliberately undermined her project coordination work to maintain dominance in our relationship. The messages revealed they'd been documenting every business dinner, every weekend I spent installing solar panels, every late evening I worked on proposals, transforming normal entrepreneurial dedication into evidence of psychological manipulation. What struck me most was seeing how Penelope had been feeding them information for months, describing our private conversations about business expansion, my client relationships, even my plans to upgrade our home with advanced solar technology. They knew exactly how much revenue each commercial contract generated because she'd been photographing my financial records whenever I worked from home. The level of betrayal was comprehensive and systematic, involving every woman in Penelope's inner circle working together to dismantle everything I'd built professionally and personally. I could hear the bathwater still running while I documented their conspiracy, the ordinary sounds of our evening routine continuing normally while my understanding of our marriage completely collapsed around me. Instead of confronting anyone, I spent the next 10 days methodically building my defense while Penelope continued acting completely normal, even helping me prepare proposals for new commercial solar installations at a shopping center complex. I watched her move through our house with the same casual intimacy she'd always shown, making coffee in the mornings, asking about my client meetings, discussing weekend plans, all while secretly executing her family's conspiracy against me. The cognitive dissonance was staggering as I realized how thoroughly she'd compartmentalized her deception. I consulted with Marcus Webb, a business attorney who specializes in protecting entrepreneurs from fraudulent claims, and began the delicate process of securing all business and personal assets without alerting Penelope to my knowledge of their scheme. Marcus immediately recognized the sophistication of their plan and warned me that families who coordinate this extensively usually have legal guidance already. I changed passwords on every business account, moved liquid assets to a separate business account she'd never known about, and had Marcus prepare comprehensive divorce papers with evidence of conspiracy and planned false accusations. The most shocking revelation came when I discovered physical evidence of Penelope's intelligence gathering throughout our home office. I found tiny scratches on my filing cabinet locks where someone had been picking them, and my laptop showed recent access to files I hadn't opened in weeks. She'd been systematically photographing my client contracts, equipment invoices, and bank statements whenever I was installing panels at commercial sites, building a complete financial profile to share with their attorney. I started leaving deliberately misleading documents in obvious places to test my theory, and sure enough, those fake financial projections appeared in their group chat within 2 days, confirming she was actively spying on my business operations. Marcus helped me trace the timeline of their conspiracy by analyzing metadata from my screenshots, and we discovered they'd been planning this systematic destruction for over 6 months, coinciding precisely with when my business started landing major commercial contracts worth 6 figures each. The family had researched divorce attorneys specializing in high-asset cases involving technical businesses, and their messages revealed they'd already had preliminary consultations with 3 different law firms before selecting their current representation. What disturbed me most was seeing how they'd weaponized normal marital challenges into evidence of abuse, transforming my work dedication into isolation tactics, my business success into financial control, and my natural introversion into emotional manipulation. They'd created detailed documentation of every argument we'd ever had, every time I'd worked late, every social event I'd missed due to installation deadlines, building a comprehensive case file designed to portray me as a controlling husband who used financial success to dominate his wife. I realized that Penelope had been strategically creating conflicts during busy work periods, deliberately scheduling social events during peak installation times, then documenting my unavailability as evidence of systematic neglect and control. The manipulation was so calculated and extensive that I began questioning every interaction we'd had over the past year, wondering how many seemingly innocent conversations had actually been intelligence-gathering operations designed to build their legal case against me. Marcus recommended I install discrete security cameras in my home office to document any future evidence tampering, and within 3 days, I captured Penelope accessing my filing cabinets while I was supposedly out installing panels at a medical complex. The footage showed her methodically photographing contracts, bank statements, and equipment warranties with her phone, even going so far as to rearrange documents in specific orders to make her searches appear less obvious. I felt a cold satisfaction watching her betray our marriage in real time through digital surveillance, finally seeing the calculated deception behind her supportive wife facade. During this period, I maintained complete normalcy in our interactions, discussing daily schedules, sharing meals, even making love with her while knowing she was actively plotting my financial destruction with military precision. The psychological strain was immense, but I channeled it into strategic planning rather than emotional confrontation, understanding that my best protection lay in superior preparation and legal positioning. Marcus helped me establish a comprehensive digital trail showing the conspiracy's premeditated nature, documenting how their messages revealed extensive research into my business model, client relationships, and revenue streams going back 8 months. We discovered they'd even researched the specific laws governing business asset division in Arizona, particularly focusing on how renewable energy equipment and contracts would be valued during divorce proceedings. Their plan included claiming that Penelope's project coordination work had directly contributed to my business success, despite the fact that we worked for completely different companies and had never collaborated professionally on any projects. The family had assigned specific research tasks to each member, with Francine investigating legal precedents for spousal business ownership claims, Ophelia researching my company's financial background through public records, and Maxine consulting with divorced friends about effective legal strategies. What struck me as particularly insidious was how they'd planned to use Penelope's genuine renewable energy expertise to substantiate false claims about contributing to my business development, leveraging her professional knowledge to create believable lies about collaboration and shared intellectual property. I realized they'd been building this case systematically while I'd been genuinely working to build a sustainable business that could support our future together, completely unaware that my wife viewed my success as an asset to be extracted rather than a foundation to be shared. My attorney Marcus served Penelope with divorce papers at her workplace on a Wednesday afternoon, including comprehensive attachments showing screenshots of the entire Project Escape chat thread as evidence of premeditated fraud and conspiracy. I chose her office specifically because I wanted her colleagues in renewable energy to witness the professional delivery, knowing that word would spread quickly through our industry about the sophisticated deception she'd orchestrated against her own husband. Within 2 hours of service, my phone exploded with 37 increasingly frantic text messages and voicemails from Penelope, demanding explanations and accusing me of betraying our marriage vows, completely ignoring the irony that she'd been systematically planning my financial destruction for months. Her family members began bombarding me with calls that I systematically blocked one by one, watching their coordinated panic unfold as they realized their carefully constructed conspiracy had been exposed and documented with legal precision. Marcus immediately filed for temporary orders requesting exclusive use of our home and protection of all business assets, citing the extensive evidence of planned false allegations and systematic asset targeting that posed immediate threats to my livelihood and reputation. The family's attorney contacted Marcus that same evening, initially demanding $220,000 in immediate liquid assets plus ongoing percentages of my business income, apparently believing they could still leverage their original strategy despite having their conspiracy completely exposed in court documents. Marcus countered by threatening to file criminal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud for their electronic communications planning illegal activities, and extortion for their systematic scheme to extract money through false accusations and manufactured evidence. The legal reality hit them hard when Marcus explained that their detailed text messages constituted written evidence of criminal conspiracy that could result in felony charges for every family member involved in the planning and execution phases. Penelope's mother arrived at my renewable energy office the next day, screaming at me in front of my business partner and 3 employees about destroying her daughter's future and ruining the family's reputation in their community. I calmly instructed my office manager to call building security while recording the entire confrontation, capturing her threats about making me pay for embarrassing their family and her demands that I withdraw the divorce petition to avoid criminal prosecution for all involved parties. The security footage showed her attempting to access my locked office areas, presumably looking for business documents or equipment she could claim as evidence, which Marcus added to our growing file of harassment and potential criminal behavior. That evening, Francine and Ophelia coordinated a social media campaign posting about my alleged financial abuse and emotional manipulation, forcing Marcus to send cease and desist letters threatening defamation lawsuits if they continued their public harassment campaign designed to damage my business reputation and client relationships. The desperation in their response was palpable as they realized their sophisticated scheme had not only failed but had actually provided me with comprehensive evidence of their criminal conspiracy that could be used against them in both civil and criminal proceedings. Marcus explained that their text messages constituted a complete paper trail showing premeditation, coordination, and specific intent to defraud through false accusations, making any criminal prosecution extremely straightforward for prosecutors who specialized in white-collar family fraud cases. Within 48 hours, 3 of my commercial solar installation clients contacted me expressing concern about negative reviews and social media posts targeting my business, forcing me to provide them with copies of the legal documents proving the harassment campaign was retaliation for exposing their failed conspiracy. The professional damage they attempted to inflict actually backfired when my clients saw the sophisticated level of deception I'd uncovered, leading two companies to increase their contracts as a show of support for my integrity under pressure. Penelope's college roommate Maxine made the strategic error of calling my business partner directly, attempting to convince him that I'd been financially abusing my wife and that he should distance the company from my personal legal problems to protect their shared business interests. My partner recorded the entire conversation and forwarded it to Marcus, providing additional evidence of coordinated harassment and business interference that could support tortious interference claims worth substantial damages. The family's panic intensified when Marcus filed preliminary injunctions preventing them from contacting my clients, my business associates, or posting any content about me on social media platforms, effectively cutting off their ability to continue their damage campaign while we pursued permanent legal remedies. The settlement negotiations revealed the true extent of their greed and desperation as Penelope's family demanded half of my business equipment inventory, exclusive rights to live in our home for 2 years rent-free, $3,200 monthly support payments, and compensation for what they claimed were lost career opportunities, totaling over $180,000 in damages. Marcus refused every single demand, leveraging the chat screenshots that showed premeditated planning to falsely claim workplace harassment and emotional abuse, while also revealing the crucial fact that I solely owned our home, having purchased it entirely before our marriage with my own funds. The family's attorney seemed genuinely shocked by the comprehensive evidence we'd compiled, admitting during one conference call that he'd never seen such detailed documentation of conspiracy planning in a domestic relations case. Penelope's twin sister Francine arrived at my home with their cousin Ophelia for what they clearly intended as an aggressive intimidation confrontation, accusing me of financial manipulation and trying to bully me into accepting a settlement that would preserve their family's reputation while giving Penelope substantial assets. I recorded the entire encounter through my security system while they inadvertently admitted to helping plan false allegations, with Francine specifically stating that they'd researched which claims would be most effective in Arizona family courts for asset division purposes. The situation escalated dangerously when they demanded access to my home workshop to supposedly retrieve Penelope's tools, but I could see they were actually attempting to inventory my expensive solar installation equipment worth over $45,000 that they'd planned to claim as marital property. I called police immediately when they refused to leave my property, and the responding officers determined the sisters were actually conducting illegal reconnaissance for their legal case rather than retrieving any legitimate personal belongings. During a heated phone conversation with Penelope's mother 2 days later, she accidentally revealed they had already contacted 3 different divorce attorneys before settling on their current representation, showing the extensively premeditated nature of their scheme and destroying any claims that this was an emotional response to marital problems. The mother's slip proved they'd been shopping for attorneys willing to pursue aggressive asset seizure strategies, ultimately selecting someone who specialized in high-conflict divorces involving business owners and technical professionals. Marcus used this admission to demonstrate that their conspiracy extended far beyond family discussions into active legal preparation for systematic asset extraction, strengthening our position for potential criminal charges and civil damages. Their desperation became even more apparent when Ophelia contacted my business insurance company claiming I'd been operating equipment dangerously and should have my coverage canceled, forcing my insurance agent to document her false claims as potential fraud that could result in separate criminal charges. The coordinated nature of their attacks across multiple fronts proved they'd planned a comprehensive destruction campaign designed to eliminate my ability to resist their financial demands through business sabotage, reputation damage, and legal intimidation. What particularly disturbed me was discovering that Penelope had been feeding her family detailed information about my client relationships, installation schedules, and business vulnerabilities for months before their plan launched, allowing them to target my most important commercial contracts with surgical precision. Maxine had researched my biggest clients through LinkedIn and industry databases, then crafted specific narratives about my alleged unprofessional behavior that would resonate with corporate decision-makers concerned about contractor reliability and workplace harassment issues. The family's strategy included having Penelope file complaints with the Better Business Bureau and industry certification boards, claiming I'd misrepresented my qualifications and overcharged for installation services, knowing that regulatory investigations could devastate a technical business regardless of their ultimate outcomes. During one particularly aggressive phone call, Francine threatened to contact the Renewable Energy Trade Association claiming I'd stolen proprietary installation techniques from Penelope's project coordination work, demonstrating how they planned to weaponize her legitimate industry expertise against my business reputation. Marcus documented every threat and intimidation attempt, building a comprehensive case file that could support both civil damages and criminal conspiracy charges against the entire family network involved in their systematic harassment campaign. The psychological warfare intensified when they began calling my elderly parents in Ohio, claiming I was having a mental breakdown and needed family intervention, forcing me to explain the entire conspiracy to my confused and worried family members who couldn't understand why anyone would orchestrate such elaborate deception. Their manipulation extended to social media platforms where they created fake accounts to leave negative reviews on my business profiles, post in renewable energy forums about my alleged incompetence, and even contacted local environmental groups claiming I was damaging the industry's reputation through unethical business practices. Marcus obtained subpoenas for their electronic communications and discovered they'd researched my personal background extensively, including my college records, previous employment history, and even my parents' financial information, suggesting their scheme involved identity theft and privacy violations that could result in federal criminal charges. The depth of their research was staggering, revealing they'd spent months studying my business model, client base, and personal vulnerabilities to craft the most devastating attack possible on both my professional reputation and personal life, transforming their family relationship into a criminal enterprise focused entirely on my systematic destruction. I returned home from a commercial installation job at a downtown office complex to find that Penelope had somehow accessed our smart home security system and changed all the access codes, despite my having updated them weeks earlier when I first discovered their conspiracy. The breach forced me to call both my security company and police, creating an official incident report that Marcus immediately added to our growing evidence file of harassment and illegal entry attempts. The locksmith who responded revealed that Penelope had called the security company that morning, convincingly impersonating a distressed homeowner locked out of her own house and successfully manipulating the customer service representative into providing temporary override codes. Marcus explained that this unauthorized access constituted criminal trespassing and potentially breaking and entering, since she'd used deception to gain entry to a property where she no longer had legal residence rights following the restraining orders. While dealing with the security breach, Penelope began a desperate campaign to schedule emergency marriage counseling sessions, sending me multiple emails about saving our relationship and working through our communication problems as if their elaborate conspiracy had been a simple misunderstanding between spouses. The cognitive dissonance was remarkable as she simultaneously had her attorney filing motions requesting immediate temporary support payments and comprehensive disclosure of all my business income and assets, proving that reconciliation was never her actual goal. My business partner contacted me urgently to report that someone had called our 3 biggest commercial clients claiming I was under federal investigation for fraud and tax evasion, forcing me to provide each client with copies of the legal documents proving this was a coordinated harassment campaign designed to damage my professional reputation. The false claims about federal investigations were particularly insidious because they could have triggered actual regulatory scrutiny and client contract cancellations that would have devastated my business regardless of their ultimate falsity. Marcus documented each incident of business interference as potential criminal charges, noting that making false claims about federal investigations could constitute wire fraud and obstruction of justice if prosecuted aggressively. The family's increasingly desperate tactics included Penelope's cousin Ophelia posting fabricated negative reviews of my business across multiple online platforms, claiming I'd damaged her solar installation and refused to honor warranty obligations for work I'd never actually performed at her residence. Her mother began calling my business contacts throughout the renewable energy industry, spreading rumors that I was mentally unstable and potentially dangerous to work with, forcing me to send clarification emails to professional associates who'd known me for years. Marcus advised me to document every single harassment incident with timestamps and recordings when possible, building an ironclad case for both criminal charges and substantial civil damages that could financially devastate the entire family network involved in their conspiracy. The situation reached a new level of absurdity when Maxine created fake social media profiles claiming to be former clients, posting detailed stories about my alleged incompetence and dishonesty that included specific technical details about solar installation that she couldn't possibly have known without inside information from Penelope. I realized they'd weaponized Penelope's legitimate renewable energy expertise to craft believable lies about my work quality, using her professional knowledge to create fraudulent reviews that would seem credible to potential clients researching my business background. The harassment campaign expanded to include anonymous tips to regulatory agencies claiming I was operating without proper licenses and certifications, forcing me to spend valuable time and money responding to official investigations that were clearly generated by false complaints designed to drain my resources and damage my professional standing. Marcus obtained restraining orders preventing any family member from contacting my clients, business associates, or regulatory agencies, but enforcing these orders required constant vigilance and legal intervention that was exactly the kind of resource drain they'd hoped to achieve through their systematic harassment. The most disturbing escalation came when building security at my office complex reported that someone matching Francine's description had attempted to access the building after hours, claiming to be conducting a safety inspection related to my solar panel installations on the roof, suggesting they were now attempting physical surveillance and potential sabotage of my actual work sites. I installed additional security cameras at both my office and home workshop, creating a comprehensive surveillance network that would document any future harassment or property crimes they might attempt as their legal position continued deteriorating and their desperation intensified accordingly. After weeks of failed negotiations and mounting evidence of criminal harassment, Penelope's attorney finally advised her to accept a minimal settlement when Marcus threatened to pursue felony conspiracy charges against the entire family network involved in their systematic fraud attempt. The attorney's change in strategy was dramatic, shifting from aggressive demands for substantial assets to desperate attempts at damage control as he realized the comprehensive evidence we'd compiled could result in criminal prosecution for multiple family members. The final settlement agreement granted Penelope only her personal belongings, her hybrid vehicle that she'd been making payments on, and exactly half of our shared savings account totaling $6,200, while I retained complete ownership of my renewable energy business, our home, and all expensive installation equipment they'd attempted to claim as marital property. During the settlement conference conducted via video call, Penelope appeared visibly defeated and admitted she never wanted the situation to escalate to criminal conspiracy charges, while her mother could be heard arguing loudly in the background about the inadequate settlement terms and demanding they continue fighting for larger asset division. Marcus strategically revealed during negotiations that we possessed additional evidence showing the family had been researching my business income and client relationships for over 8 months before their divorce planning began, proving the extensively premeditated nature of their conspiracy and eliminating any possible claims that this was an emotional response to legitimate marital problems. The timeline evidence demonstrated they'd been systematically gathering intelligence about my business operations since shortly after I'd landed my first major commercial solar contracts, suggesting their entire relationship with me had been compromised by financial targeting from very early stages. Penelope's attorney privately admitted to Marcus that he'd never seen such comprehensive documentation of family conspiracy in domestic relations cases, and that pursuing the case further would likely result in criminal charges that could destroy multiple family members' reputations and financial stability permanently. The move-out process became contentious when family members attempted to remove business equipment and tools worth over $4,800, claiming these items were gifts to Penelope or jointly purchased marital property, despite clear documentation showing I'd acquired everything before our marriage or through my business accounts. My security camera system captured Francine and Ophelia loading expensive solar installation equipment into their vehicles, including specialized testing meters, power tools, and diagnostic equipment that they clearly intended to steal as compensation for their failed conspiracy attempt. I immediately called police, who arrived while they were still loading equipment, leading to the recovery of all stolen items and additional criminal charges for attempted theft that Marcus added to our growing case file against the family network. The police report documenting their theft attempt provided final proof of their criminal intent and willingness to commit actual crimes when their sophisticated fraud conspiracy failed to achieve the financial results they'd planned. Penelope broke down completely during the final property division, crying and claiming she'd been manipulated by her family into participating in their scheme, but her own text messages clearly showed enthusiastic participation and strategic planning rather than reluctant compliance with family pressure. Marcus presented screenshots showing Penelope had actually initiated several key planning discussions and had volunteered to gather specific business intelligence that her family members had then used to craft their legal strategy, destroying any credibility for her claims of victimization. The settlement documents included specific language acknowledging that Penelope had participated voluntarily in systematic deception and conspiracy planning, preventing her from later claiming duress or family coercion if she attempted to challenge the agreement through appeals or modifications. During the final signing session, Penelope's mother made one last desperate attempt to renegotiate, threatening to file criminal complaints against me for financial abuse and claiming they had evidence of tax evasion that could trigger federal investigations into my business operations. Marcus immediately countered by presenting our complete evidence file and explaining that filing false criminal complaints would constitute additional felony charges that could result in federal prosecution for obstruction of justice and making false statements to law enforcement agencies. The mother's threats collapsed when she realized that any criminal complaints they filed would be immediately investigated against the backdrop of documented conspiracy evidence, making their family members prime suspects for filing false reports rather than legitimate victims seeking justice. Her attorney advised immediate compliance with settlement terms to avoid criminal prosecution, noting that continuing their harassment campaign would provide prosecutors with ongoing evidence of criminal intent and systematic fraud that could result in substantial federal prison sentences. The final irony came when Penelope requested permission to retrieve her renewable energy textbooks and certification materials from my home office, the same space where she'd been secretly photographing my business documents for months to support their conspiracy against me. I allowed the supervised retrieval while recording everything, watching her gather the professional materials that had given her the technical knowledge necessary to craft believable lies about my business practices and work quality for their fraud scheme. Marcus ensured the settlement included comprehensive restraining orders preventing any family member from contacting me, my business associates, or my clients for any reason, with violation penalties including immediate criminal prosecution and civil damages that could financially destroy anyone who attempted further harassment or intimidation campaigns. The psychological relief was immense as I watched them sign documents that effectively ended their ability to continue their systematic destruction campaign while simultaneously protecting me from future attacks through legal mechanisms that carried serious criminal penalties for violations. 3 weeks after signing the settlement agreement, my divorce became final, and I found myself reflecting on the total financial cost of defending against their conspiracy: $11,200 in legal fees, $800 in security system upgrades, and $6,200 from our shared savings account, compared to the potential $200,000 plus loss if Penelope's family had succeeded with their original asset extraction plan. The mathematics were staggering when I considered how their systematic fraud attempt could have destroyed everything I'd built over years of dedicated work in renewable energy, forcing me to start over financially while they profited from assets they'd never contributed to creating or maintaining. My solar installation business actually benefited from the entire ordeal as word spread throughout the renewable energy industry about my professional handling of personal attacks, leading to 3 new substantial commercial contracts from clients who were impressed by my integrity under extreme pressure and systematic harassment. The business community's response surprised me as several competitors privately admitted they'd faced similar family manipulation attempts, and my documented approach to defending against conspiracy and fraud had created a template that other entrepreneurs could use to protect themselves from comparable schemes. I realized that Penelope's family had been poisoning our relationship for years through subtle manipulation, constantly criticizing my work schedule during peak installation seasons and suggesting she deserved better financial security than what my growing business could provide, which I now understood were early stages of their long-term psychological conditioning campaign. Their strategy had involved gradually undermining my confidence while simultaneously gathering intelligence about my business operations, creating the perfect conditions for their eventual conspiracy launch when my contracts reached sufficient value to justify their elaborate fraud scheme. My business partner helped me implement comprehensive new security protocols for client information and business assets, including encrypted file storage, restricted access procedures, and background checks for anyone with access to sensitive financial or operational data that could be weaponized in personal attacks. We also established legal procedures for responding to harassment campaigns targeting our business, including pre-drafted cease and desist templates, evidence documentation requirements, and relationships with attorneys who specialized in business protection from domestic fraud attempts and conspiracy cases. The most profound revelation came when Marcus's investigation uncovered old text messages showing Penelope's family had been researching divorce attorneys and asset division strategies since 6 months into our marriage, suggesting their relationship with me had been systematically compromised from very early stages rather than deteriorating naturally over time. This discovery fundamentally changed how I understood our entire marriage, realizing that what I'd interpreted as normal relationship challenges had actually been deliberate manipulation designed to gather intelligence and create legal advantages for an eventual financial extraction campaign that they'd been planning almost since we'd gotten together. The timeline evidence proved they'd viewed my growing business success as an opportunity to be exploited rather than a foundation for genuine partnership, transforming every intimate conversation about future plans into intelligence gathering for their systematic destruction scheme. Despite the betrayal and psychological manipulation I'd endured, I felt genuinely liberated from a toxic family dynamic and a marriage that had been built on systematic deception rather than authentic love and partnership, finally understanding why I'd always felt like I was performing for approval rather than being accepted for who I actually was as a person. My business continued thriving as I channeled my energy into helping other businesses transition to renewable energy solutions, finding genuine purpose in building sustainable technology infrastructure rather than constantly defending against personal attacks and manipulation from people who were supposed to support my success. The contrast was remarkable between the exhausting vigilance required to protect myself from Penelope's family conspiracy and the energizing satisfaction of working with clients who genuinely appreciated professional expertise and wanted to create positive environmental impact through solar technology adoption. I established a victim support network for other entrepreneurs who'd faced similar family-based fraud attempts, sharing legal strategies and emotional support resources that could help business owners protect themselves from domestic conspiracy schemes that weaponized intimate relationships for financial exploitation. The experience taught me that success in business often attracts predatory behavior from people who view achievement as something to be stolen rather than something to be earned, and that protecting professional assets requires the same systematic approach as building them in the first place. 6 months after the divorce finalized, I received notification that Penelope had moved to another state and changed her name, apparently trying to escape the legal and social consequences of her family's failed conspiracy while starting fresh somewhere that her reputation hadn't been destroyed by documented fraud attempts. I felt no satisfaction from her apparent struggles, only relief that the systematic harassment had finally ended and I could focus entirely on building the renewable energy business that had always been my genuine passion rather than constantly defending it from people who wanted to destroy what they couldn't legitimately claim. The renewable energy industry proved surprisingly supportive once word spread about how I'd handled the systematic attack on my business, with several major companies reaching out to discuss partnership opportunities and exclusive installation contracts that demonstrated their confidence in my professional integrity and technical expertise. I realized that defending myself effectively against their conspiracy had actually enhanced my reputation within the industry, proving to potential clients and partners that I could handle complex challenges with systematic professionalism and legal precision when necessary. Marcus continued monitoring for any violations of the restraining orders, But the family seemed to have finally understood that further harassment would result in immediate criminal prosecution with substantial penalties that could destroy their financial stability and professional reputations permanently. The comprehensive legal protections we'd established created a defensive perimeter that allowed me to operate my business without constantly watching for sabotage attempts or reputation attacks from people who had demonstrated their willingness to commit fraud and conspiracy to achieve their financial goals. I found myself genuinely grateful for discovering their text thread when I did, rather than learning about their conspiracy after they'd successfully executed their plan and destroyed my business through false allegations and systematic asset seizure that could have taken years to recover from legally. The early warning provided by their own documented communications had allowed me to build a comprehensive defense before they could launch their attack, turning their systematic planning against them and providing prosecutors with ironclad evidence of premeditated fraud and conspiracy. My relationship with clients strengthened as I shared appropriate details about the harassment campaign I'd faced, helping other business owners recognize similar warning signs and implement protective measures before becoming victims of comparable family-based fraud schemes that weaponized intimate relationships for financial exploitation. The experience fundamentally changed my approach to business security and personal relationships, teaching me to maintain appropriate boundaries between professional assets and personal connections while remaining open to genuine partnership with people who demonstrated authentic support rather than hidden agendas designed to exploit professional success for personal gain.